9th, 2021 meeting for the Monterey City Planning Commission. May we have a roll call, please?
Absolutely. First, we have Chair Brassfield,
Present.
Vice Chair Freeman,
Present.
Commissioner Dawson,
Yes.
Commissioner Fletcher has notified us he is absent. Commissioner Milich,
Here.
Commissioner Latassa has also notified us he will be absent. And Commissioner Reed.
Here.
Thank you. That is 5 present out of our 7 total.
Thank you. Moving right along, let's move into the minutes of our last meeting. Any comments or suggested?
I think it's, I don't have the record in front of me, but I think it's packet page 16, paragraph D, descent should be descendant. I think that's.
Don't have it. I don't have it in
it?
front of me either.
Packet
other-
page 16? You mean page 3 on the minutes?
No, I'm looking at page 16. Page 16, packet page. That may or may not be in minutes. I'm not positive.
That's not in the minutes. That's in the first staff report. So
Okay.
that
Okay.
might be
Okay.
for the next agenda item.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? And then do I have a motion on the minutes?
Move to accept as presented.
From Mike and a second from Steve, is that correct?
Yes.
And then if we could, let's have a roll call vote.
Definitely. First, we have you, Chair Brassfield,
Present. I mean, yes, I'm sorry.
Vice Chair Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Dawson,
Yes.
Commissioner Milich,
Aye.
and Commissioner Reed.
I'm actually going to abstain since I was not part of that meeting.
Definitely. And again, we have Commissioners Fletcher and Latassa who are absent. So that that motion passed with 4 out of 7 votes. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have Sarah to talk about how we're going to get public comments?
We do, certainly. So let me go ahead and just take a couple minutes here to describe how to participate in the public comments. So first of all, welcome, and we do encourage members of the public to join our meetings via Zoom Gov, as it is a secure service and will connect you live with no lag time to the meeting. This meeting is also streamed live on youtube.com/City of Monterey, where there's a 10-second delay, and on Comcast channel 25, which can have up to a 90-second delay. If you would like to provide public comment, please join the meeting using Zoom or by telephone, making sure to join in time to accommodate any of these delays. To join the Zoom meeting from a computer or phone, use the link or phone number posted on the agenda at isearchmonterey.org. And since this meeting has begun, you'll find the agenda under the recent tab. To join by telephone, you can dial 833-568-8864 toll free, or 669-254-5252, and then enter the webinar ID, which for this meeting is 161-990-8039. And if you're prompted to enter a participant ID, simply press pound. Detailed instructions for using Zoom are available at monterey.org/public meetings. And if you'd like to provide a public comment, please raise your hand in Zoom, or by telephone, dial *9 to raise your hand, then *6 to unmute yourself when called upon. Public commenters will be muted until it is their turn to speak, so please turn off any computer, speakers, or TV, or simply go to another room while connected by phone, as any background noise can interfere with our broadcast. Public speakers will be called upon in order of hands raised, and the chair has designated a 3-minute time limit for today's meeting with a countdown timer that'll be shown on the screen. And we ask that you please stay within your time limit. And let me take a look here and see. And we do have one attendee with their hand raised. So just a reminder, this is about items not on the agenda. And let's see. Oh, it looks like Jennifer, could you promote me to host so I can let Tony share his public comment here? There we go. And so Tony, I see your hand raised. If you'd like to share your public comment, please go ahead and unmute.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much for the work you do. I know some of you, and I've dealt with the Planning Commission many times over the years for various projects. I always learn something, and I think that what I've noticed is that you guys take a real look at the big picture and how a project will impact everything from noise to traffic to lighting, and most importantly, how it fits into our city. And I really learned a lot about that over the years. So a little background here, as you probably know, MPUSD asked voters to pass a couple of bond measures a few years ago, and we all answered with a resounding yes. You know, we between P and I gave them over $300 million to spend, and ostensibly to improve the crumbling infrastructure of our schools and create an environment for 21st century learning. So I think all of us agree that we want to educate our kids. We want to do a great job and provide great facilities to do so. And I think we all agree on that. However, the planning department for the city has a responsibility to make sure that during that process, the city that we hand off to our kids and future generations is one that we're proud of, and one that is keeping with the theme of Monterey and what really has made it so magic over all these generations. So I'm here to encourage you to look closely at the draft EIR, at what MPUSD is planning for the Monterey High School campus, and more specifically for the stadium that sits in the middle of our primarily residential neighborhood. And I guess, I shouldn't say I guess, my question is, does it really match up with the general plan? And you know, I don't know if anybody has read the draft EIR. It's long and, as usual, boring, but it clearly states there that light wash and night glow will clearly exceed city limits. It also states that the noise is going to increase beyond what our general plan states is acceptable. Unfortunately, in both cases, they call it significant and unavoidable. And my question is, really? You could not do that. You could not do it and avoid this. I mean, think about what 4 70-foot light poles will look like with a total of 50 light fixtures, and it will look like from all over the city. You'll be able to see it from Pacific. It's going to create light all over the neighborhood, and I think really have a dramatic impact on us. Also, you should know that the city will be required by the Civic Center Act to make available this new facility for group use all the time. I'm not sure if you're aware, but they're already advertising for it. So it seems like they're kind of ahead of the thing. So in closing, really, you all are the designated keepers of the character of Monterey. We depend on you to keep us safe and also to ensure that any new projects are in keeping with the charm that is Monterey. And in my judgment, the stadium lighting and bleacher project does not meet either of those criteria. So please take a look at it. You know, let the planning department do your job and hold MPUSD accountable for meeting the same standards as the rest of us are held to. We're counting on you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tony. Any other comments, Jennifer? Sarah?
Let me go ahead and take a look here, and thank you, Tony, for your comments. And it doesn't look like we have any hands raised at this time to share any comments.
Okay, then I'll close public comment, and I believe we can move on to our agenda item.
Thank you, Chair Brassfield. The first agenda item is to consider 167 Davis Lane. It's a use permit application UP 200158 to allow a mixed-use project, 1 residential unit and a commercial office space. The applicant and owner are William Pugh and Juliette Lee. It's in the COES zoning district and the commercial general plan land use designation. And with that, I'll turn it over to the project planner, Fernanda Riveri.
Thank you.
Nice.
Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. As Kim mentioned, this is a use permit at 167 Davis Lane. And this is a view of the property. It's also known as 172 El Dorado Street. It has frontages on El Dorado, and then Davis Lane is the rear yard. The zoning is CO, Commercial Office, ES, Emergency Shelter, and it has commercial land use designation according to the general plan. There is an existing 2,537 square foot medical office building and an existing 7-space parking lot in the back. And the lot size is 6,800 square feet.
Fernanda, would you introduce yourself, please?
Oh, sure. My name is Fernanda Roveri. I'm the interim principal planner.
Thank you.
The proposal is to have a mixed use in that existing building. So the applicant is proposing to remodel the interior to section off the building into 2 parts. The back part would be a 1,464 square foot residential unit, and the front would remain a medical office space of roughly 1,073 square feet. So the commercial office space would be entered through, what was the street? Sorry, El Dorado Street. And the residential unit would be entered through Davis Lane. No building expansion is proposed, and the zoning ordinance requires a use permit for mixed uses, which is why you're seeing this permit today. The existing use is on the left, and this is the building being used as a medical office. The entrance is through the reception area through El Dorado Street, and there's a lab area and exam rooms, restrooms, etc. The proposed room layout would section off the medical office space from a new residential unit in the back. So the reception area would still be in the front, but there would be less office space and less exam rooms and only 1 restroom. So in the back is the residential unit. And this is just a sketch of what they envision that it could look like. And any exterior alterations would have to go through architectural review. The parking requirement for mixed-use projects is 1 space per 275 square feet for business and professional offices. And the proposal is for 4 spaces for 1,073 square feet of office space, which meets the requirement. For the residential portion, the requirement is 1 permanently assigned parking space for each residential unit, and no covered parking spaces are required. And the applicant is proposing 2 spaces in that back parking lot. In order to approve the use permit, the Planning Commission must make the following findings: that the proposed use is in accord with the objectives of the zoning ordinance and the purpose of the zone, and mixed use would be harmonious with surrounding land uses because this area is full of other medical office buildings, but it also has some residential units because it used to be a residential neighborhood way back in the day. And slowly the residences have been converted to offices. So this would be, this project would be returning the building back to one of its original uses. And then the second finding is the proposed use and the proposed conditions under which it would be operated will be consistent with the general plan, will not be detrimental to public health, safety, or welfare, will not be detrimental to properties or improvements in the vicinity or to the general welfare of the city. And it would meet this finding because there's no building expansion proposed. All the improvements would take place within the existing building, and the parking requirements would be met. Lastly, the proposed use will comply with any condition required, such as, like I said, architectural review if exterior alterations are proposed. And it also will comply with the standard conditions of approval that are included in the resolution. In conclusion, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt the resolution presented to you to allow one residential unit and commercial office space at 167 Davis Lane. Thank you. The applicant is here if you have any questions, and I'm also here for questions.
Could we have questions for Fernanda first, please, from the commission?
I have a couple questions.
Go ahead.
So first question is, if this were to convert solely to a residential versus mixed use, would it still need a use permit?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. And so then the next question is, if it converts to the proposed plan of office on El Dorado and residential on Davis Lane, does the office space then qualify as an ADU? And could they convert that office space to an ADU without going through any permitting process? Because we don't, I mean, it should, I mean, I guess the question is, would it qualify as an ADU? And if it did, then theoretically it wouldn't take anything to convert that. Kim.
Yeah, Kim, correct me if I'm wrong, but does the zoning of commercial office prevent an ADU from being there, or could it be there in the future?
So state zoning law allows an ADU to be constructed on a single family site or a mixed use site or a multifamily site. So it's allowed in all three scenarios with residential uses. And so if they did propose at a later date an ADU, that would be a ministerial action, and it would be submitted directly to the building department for approval. The one caveat in our community is they would still have to show adequate water credits for this change of use.
But right now, if it was just zoned one building, it would be, so when it's all one unit, right? The ADU process is different than if it was already segmented off, or doesn't matter at all.
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
So no matter what they submit to the building department.
Okay, that was the only question I had.
Sure.
Great question.
I have a question. Am I unmuted?
Steve was up first, Sandy.
Okay.
My only comment was that was a good question, Hudson.
Sandy?
Sure. I'm looking at the photograph of the property, and then I'm also trying to remember Fernanda's sketch of the before and after. When you look at the property from El Dorado, it looks like a residence. And I don't remember if there is parking on the property per se to get into the doctor's office. But when you look at the property from the rear, it looks like that's where the bulk of parking is. Doesn't look anything like a residence, just looks like a back parking lot. Is the owner proposing to use this parking lot for both the commercial and the residential parking?
Yes.
That's right. So the owner is proposing 4 spaces for the office and 2 for the residential, and they are all located in the back.
On Davis Lane.
Yes.
Any other questions? Let's have the applicant, if you would.
Somebody's talking, but they're not unmuted.
How about now?
There
Gotcha.
you go.
Hey, there you go. I'm Jack Takeman. I'm representing Dr. Key. I'm a general contractor, been on Peninsula forever. He came to me with this project basically because the commercial space he had, if you notice, they had a big lab right in the center of it. And most of the lab is all being done over at Ryan Ranch or Montage, wherever the specifics are. So he wanted to go ahead and do it as a family because he had a doctor that actually wanted to live on site with his office right there. So this is what we had come up with. The parking that was mentioned is already existing in the back. We kind of situated it a little bit so that the residential will actually go to one side of the property for the entrance, and the business will go to the other side when you hit the back parking lot. But if there's any other questions you have that I can answer, I'm more of a nuts and bolts type guy. And so,
Any
ahead.
questions? I have one question. I didn't see an entrance to the residence on the sketch.
yes, if you look at the sketch where they have the you can see on the right-hand side where they have the, looking at the sketch on the right-hand side, we show house and we show residence. They're actually planning to put the main entrance come in right where the kitchen is. There's a little jog. I don't know if you have the picture in front of you.
That.
Yeah, there's a little jog. So actually they'll come into, there's a little area that's kind of offset from the kitchen. That'll actually be the entrance for the unit.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you. Any other questions of the applicant? Let's bring it back to the commission then, and your
Let's
ideas.
open it, if we can open
Oh,
it up
I
for
beg your-
public hearing
yeah.
first.
I beg your pardon, forgot public comment, and I got a note here. Let's go ahead. Sarah?
Oh, Chair. So I'll just give a friendly reminder on how to provide public comment for today's meeting. Please remember that you can join the Zoom meeting from a computer or phone, and you can use the Zoom link or phone number posted to the agenda that is located at isearchmonterey.org. And since this meeting has started, it'll be under the recent tab. And just a friendly reminder, if you'd like to join by telephone, you can dial 833-568-8864. Or you can call 669-254-5252. And when you call in, you will enter our webinar ID, which is 161-990-8039. And to provide a public comment, please raise your hand in Zoom, or if you're calling in, you can dial *9 to raise your hand and then *6 to unmute yourself. And just taking a look at our attendees, I don't have any hands raised at this time, but I will inform you if we get any additional public comment.
Just to let you know, there's a chat that the one person, Jan Burns, asked, I saw a carport in the plans. Where will that be? So she did a general chat.
Thank you. I just saw that as I was finishing up that speech and looking over. So thank you for sharing that comment and question.
Do I supposed to answer the question?
Well, since you're here, go ahead.
Okay, it's a deal. Yeah, and the city doesn't require covered parking, but we felt that a covered parking for someone who's living there, rainy days like this morning was. So we have the carport is, when you look at the parking, it's to the right-hand side. It's the far right-hand side. We're designating that for the residential, then the one next to it as the other residential. And this way, like I had mentioned to you a little earlier, their entrance is going to be right there, so they'll be able to come right in.
Thank you. All right, let's bring it back to the commission for commissioners' comments.
I'll start. I really don't have any comments other than it seems fine. Seems like an appropriate use for the location. So, I mean, that area has lots of offices, lots of residential, and I don't have any
Fits
problem.
right in with the neighborhood.
Yeah, so if anybody else has any comments, otherwise I would move to approve.
I do have a comment.
Go ahead.
I walk by there, 3 or 4 times a week on the way to the post office, and you're right. There's a multitude of commercial and residential uses on that one block, and so this is no big change.
Okay, so I would move to approve the permit application UP 0-0158 to allow a mixed use project, 1 residential unit and 1 commercial office space at 167 Davis Lane pursuant to the findings and criteria as submitted in the draft resolution.
Second.
We have a first and a second, Hanson and Sandy. Any other discussion? I just want to make one comment that I think that the city, the people who live here are also now starting to come up with turning some of these properties back into residences. So I applaud the idea. We certainly need it. Okay, if we could have a vote, I would appreciate it.
Sorry about that. I wanted to type that last comment in. First, we have you, Chair Brassfield.
Yes.
And Vice Chair Freeman.
Yes.
Commissioner Dawson.
Yes.
Commissioner Milich.
Yes.
And Commissioners Fletcher and Latassa are absent. So that motion passes with 4 votes.
Don't I get to vote?
Yes, you do. Sorry about
I was
that.
just going to say.
Commissioner Reed, please vote.
Aye.
I'm trying to figure out how we could do that with 4.
Right. I said it out loud and knew it was wrong right away.
Appreciate
Sorry
it.
about that.
That's
Okay,
what you
we
get.
have.
That's what you get for missing a meeting.
I was in paradise.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay,
for
let's
appreciate it.
appreciate it. Let's move on to the next item on the agenda.
Thank you, Chair Brassfield. In a moment, I'll turn it over to Fernando Riveri, our interim principal planner. But I think the commission is well aware that the context of state law has changed for how to evaluate circulation impacts. And we recently, the Planning Commission looked at SB 743 and vehicle miles traveled as a new metric, and that'll be going to the City Council in the near future. There's also the Sustainable Community Strategy that's been adopted. And a lot of this is predicated on the idea at the state level to reduce the amount of vehicle miles traveled to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. One of the things that we needed to undertake was to look at our general plan element for the circulation element and look to see where it needed to be upgraded to reflect some of these laws. In addition, current general plan law also places a much higher emphasis on pedestrian and bicycle connections, as well as accessibility for all types of people. So looking at access to all facilities. So our team, which has been consisted of Fernando Riveri, Andrea Rennie, our city traffic engineer, Marissa Garcia, our transportation planner, and our consultant, Frederick Venter, have been working on the large amendments and their goals and policies for our general plan update to be compliant with state law. So with that, I will turn it over to Fernanda. We are not asking for a decision tonight. This is really just an advanced look for the Planning Commission at the draft document. We've also initiated consultations with the Army, the Navy, TAMC, and all of the required stakeholders when we're looking at updates to our transportation element. So with that, I'll turn it over to Fernanda, and we're happy to answer any questions, and please provide input.
Thank you, Kim. Again, my name is Fernanda. I'm an interim principal planner. And today, let's talk about the circulation element. So what is a circulation element? It's a required element in California general plans. And there are 8 other elements that are also required, including the land use element. And by the way, we are not proposing to change the land use element today. but it is important that our circulation element correlates with the land use element. And our circulation element is supposed to address transportation needs now and into the future. So it's really a vision document that helps the city figure out how does it want to move people and goods in the city now and moving forward, and how do we manage our transportation network so that it is able to do that into the future. Our circulation element vision, which is proposed, is that Monterey will be a city where alternative forms of transportation are attractive and the use of an automobile is a choice, not a necessity. The transportation system is safe for all users and supports the local economy while maintaining the historic character of the city. And the first part of this vision is really, like Kim said, an attempt to include all modes of transportation: pedestrians, bicyclists, truck traffic, automobiles, seniors. So we want it to be, we want Monterey to be a place where everyone can travel, and not just on an automobile, but in other ways comfortably. And then that the transportation system is safe for all users, supports the local economy, and maintains historic character. So we want to make sure that we are keeping the historic character of the city when we make transportation choices and when we think about new facilities. And again, support the local economy, support our military facilities, airport, many of our economic generators. I want to mention these two Senate bills, 375 and 743. They're very important because they were passed after our last circulation element was adopted back in 2005, I believe. And these are very important because their goal is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And Senate Bill 375 is doing that by requiring that our transportation and land use planning go hand in hand, including where we locate our housing. So that's why it's a requirement for our land use and circulation elements to correlate and to provide more of a jobs housing balance. And then Senate Bill 743, it required that a new CEQA metric be used, and that is VMT, which we talked about at the last meeting. And so our circulation element is adopting VMT as the new CEQA metric for transportation impact analysis. We are proposing to break our circulation element into several chapters. The first one being a transportation and land use chapter, so that we are better able to coordinate these two elements. We want to make sure that all of our land uses are accessible by walking, biking, using transit, as well as the other traditional modes of automobiles. And then the street system chapter, we want to maintain our roadway system that is safe and efficient and moves all kinds of users across all modes of transportation. And each of these chapters have several policies attached to them. And this is in your attachment. But I would just wanted to highlight our goals and our vision. And each policy under each chapter is meant to be the driving force for our circulation element vision. So our policies are not meant to be projects. They are meant to give us the foundation to implement projects later that will help us meet our vision. The bicycle chapter and the pedestrian chapter, we want to make sure that bicyclists and pedestrians are encouraged and feel safe in using our transportation network. And this goes for residents, employees, and visitors. The transit chapter, we want to encourage transit use, including bus rapid transit and rail, and supporting MST in its efforts to do so. The vehicle miles traveled chapter, VMT, basically it assigns VMT as the new CEQA metric for evaluating traffic impacts. And this helps us meet the requirement of SB 743, which aims to reduce greenhouse gas emissions through the reduction of vehicle miles traveled. The parking chapter, the goal of that chapter is to use existing parking facilities efficiently before thinking about any parking expansion projects, and encouraging a reduction in auto travel so that we don't have to dedicate more land for parking. The Vision Zero chapter Vision Zero means we want zero collisions in the city. And the policies within it would help us reach zero collisions. The Environment and Equity and Economy chapter, we want to make sure that our transportation network is environmentally sustainable and equitable, and it supports the economic vitality of all sectors in the city. Then the Transportation System Management chapter, this is what Andrea and Marissa have been working on with the adaptive signals, making our arterials safe and efficient by moving traffic through. And that is the purpose of arterials. And so using intelligent transportation technology to do that. And last but not least, the air transportation chapter, an air transportation system that is integrated with a multimodal surface system that moves people and goods while maximizing positive economic impacts. And so we had to look at what the state required for circulation elements, make sure that our proposal met all the requirements. And the state requires that a circulation element show the location of all existing and proposed major thoroughfares, transportation routes, terminals, military airports, and other public utilities and facilities, and that they are all correlated with the land use element. And although we are not proposing new major thoroughfares, we do have existing ones that we need to manage, maintain, monitor, so that they are able to carry people in the future. And again, our transportation and land use chapter helps the circulation element correlate with the land use element. And then another requirement is that we meet the needs of all users, including seniors, people with disabilities, etc., bicyclists, pedestrians, so that they feel safe and it is convenient to use the transportation network. All of our policies aim to include all users of the road. For example, our transportation and land use chapter, street system policy, and pedestrian policy all include making improvements to meet the Americans with Disabilities Act and provide accessible facilities. The third requirement is to make sure that our circulation element identifies funding for capital operations and maintenance of additions to the network. We are not proposing any additions to our thoroughfares or any new streets, but some of our policies may in the future create new bicycle, pedestrian, and transit network additions or improvements. And the funding that would help us pay for that would be from the Parking and Transportation Fund, grant funding opportunities, and VMT mitigation. And these are listed in the following policies. And lastly, the land use element needs to correlate with the circulation element, but also use the noise element in order to shelter our sensitive communities from noise, from the noise that transportation could create. And so we have our policy A.7. It does not support non-aviation uses within the airport district that could create unnecessary traffic impacts in adjacent residential neighborhoods. So this is just an example of one of our policies that would shelter residential uses from getting too much noise. And then these are just other examples. Our truck routes are encouraged to be placed in a way that it reduces exposure to residents from excessive truck noise. And then some of the air transportation policies support airport improvements and operational changes that promote noise reduction. Again, this is not, we're not asking you to make a decision, but we are asking you to discuss the draft circulation element and provide input. And Andrea and Marissa from the traffic division are here also if you have any specific questions.
Thank you. Any questions of Fernanda? And maybe even it's going to be kind of hard to separate discussion in some of the questions, because that's one of the ideas of having this discussion. But go ahead, commissioners.
I'm afraid I have about a dozen comments. Shall I start at the top?
Might as well. I've got about it as well.
Okay. Paragraph 4, land use policy A7 that we just talked about does not support non-aviation uses within the airport district. The airport district is a district. It's not part of Monterey. I don't think that, our policy could be a policy, but it's not going to have any effect. Number 2, policy A.11, future rail service. We've fought this fight for years now. You'll never get a railroad into town because they cannot be at grade crossing in the general plan. You'll never get it past Sand City because that intersection up there is impossible. They couldn't even get a bike lane through there. So I think, I'd like to see you just drop the rail service totally, because I don't think there's any chance in hell it's going to happen. Next, well, there's a couple. E.7 is rail service as well. Goal H, a transportation network supported by projects and programs that work toward zero collisions, involving serious fatal injuries. It sounds like we're trying to involve fatal injuries. Now, I think the comma is misplaced. And then back to page 38, it's all about the air service. And I think it would behoove us to involve the airport district in that discussion. I'm the only one in this page here that goes to those airport district meetings, and they can get pretty feisty when you're invading their territory. So I think it would be a real good idea to involve them much more than they are now. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Anybody else?
just say one thing, and I'll bring it up later when we have commissioner comments on a general nature. Mike mentions that the airport district is a district, not subject to the city of Monterey general plan. Did I hear that correctly?
Right.
Well, isn't that interesting that the school district is a district and doesn't seem to be subject to the city of Monterey general plan? Because even though at the last 5 meetings, someone has spoken out about the school district EIR relative to the noise, the event space, and the getting in and out and being in the proximity of residential area, they seem to be a bubble, a district that is not subject to the city of Monterey general plan. The coincidence is pretty interesting.
It's also true.
Excellent. Thanks, Andy. Hanson, any comments? Any questions, I should say. Excuse me. Okay, Steve?
No comment.
I have a couple for Fernanda. One of the things that we've been talking about the last meeting and the various topics is the new VMT. And in reading in between the lines of this thing, it mentions number of employees. Are we going to be starting to track the number of employees and the to and from automobile transportation or alternatives in this whole mix?
So,
Yeah, maybe we can have Frederick Venter respond to that.
That'll work.
The-
I don't think he's here.
No, he is. I see
Oh.
him.
Oh, there, okay. You're muted, or we can't hear you, Frederick, for some reason.
Sorry about that. Yep, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, too many buttons. Frederick Winter with Kimberly Horn. Yeah, so that's a great question about employees, right? So I wouldn't say that we are tracking employees. That's maybe not the phrase or the intent of VMT. But what VMT does is the metric to use for doing VMT analysis for office development would be VMT per employee, right? Because that's how the state and SB 743 reads. So if you have a specific project and let's say it's a residential use and it's going to go to an office use, so the residential use is obviously generating VMT and that's per capita, and the office use is going to be a new use, so that VMT may be per employee. So those are the thresholds that were determined based on the VMT analysis, and it's prescribed by SB 743. The mitigation, if you want to mitigate the VMT impact, so let's say it is an employee-based business that has a VMT impact, then your measures of mitigation that you're going to apply is going to be focused on those employees because they are the ones that's generating the VMT and you want to mitigate it, right? If it is residential, right, the mitigation is going to be focused on the residents because they are the ones that generate the VMT.
Thank you. My next question goes to a combination of trains and buses. It seems that we are continually having to dance around the issue of too many cars in the city and how can we reduce them? And part of that has been trains, but the trains funding to the peninsula has been a mixed bag. But one of the things I don't see too much discussion of, when Fort Ord was an Army base, they have a small section of track that goes adjacent to the track that goes to the peninsula, called a siding.
Right.
And it's out at that island between the highways near the entrance to Fort Ord and Fort Ord housing. Has anyone looked at the idea of taking that island and using it as a transportation hub to the peninsula, getting people from the cars before they actually drive into the cities and put them on buses or some light track system? Maybe Kim, maybe you or Frederick can answer that.
Well, I know that TAMSI's have been working on that with the Monterey Salinas Transit. Andrea, you might be in the best position to describe the proposed new bus hub that's proposed sort of adjacent to the Veterans Center and that will feed into the peninsula.
Thank you, Kim. My name is Andrea Rennie. I'm City Traffic Engineer. Commissioners, good evening. And so the proposed surf line, and the way I understand it is MSC is working with TAMSI. They're having the new bus rapid transit system, which is called the surf line. And it does go from Marina, and then it goes all the way to Seaside on the old rail right away. And then when it comes to Monterey, it does go into mixed flow on Del Monte Avenue. So the specific route, and Frederick, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Kimley Horn is working on that. So the specific route is on their website. So I'm not 100% if it does include the portion that you're specifically talking about.
Yeah, I think
Well,
the
I'm talking, go ahead, Frederick.
sorry, the routing right now is down Reservation, then Del Monte and Marina, and then it in Marina it gets onto the existing rail right away, and then it follows the rail right away up to the Del Monte Fremont off ramp, and then it goes down Del Monte and into Seaside, and I think at La Playa is where it gets back into the mixed flow lanes.
And
So
if
there
you'd
is-
like, I could share my screen. I have pulled up the surf line for MST. I can show you where the video is if you'd like.
That'd be nice.
Right.
Okay, happy to do that. Can everyone see the MST website?
Uh-huh.
Great. So if you want to do this after the meeting, just go to mst.org and you can put in the surf line, and they have this really interesting website. And if you scroll down here, the audio is a little loud. This is a 3-minute video, but it actually shows the proposed line. So if it's too loud, raise your hand. I'm not sure how to mute it, and I can stop the audio. It'll come on here in a second.
Buffering problems.
Can't hear it.
So I may help out a little bit. So this is in the city of Marina, and that's at the intersection of Del Monte and Palm. You can see the blue is actually the bus, right? And that's where the bus actually gets off, and then it just got onto the rail right away. And this is now running along Highway 1, right? And I think that's the 8th Street Bridge. You can see the Fort Ord on the left-hand side there. So there's the Fort Tag bike connection.
Yeah.
So the bus turns, and there's an existing undercrossing. This is approximately where, just before, it's a little bit before the Del Monte Fremont intersection. So there's a proposal for a brand new bus terminus right there on the Fort Ord land. And this is where we think, that's great connection into Marina, but also the CSUMB, right? There's a lot of students. So, and in future development, that I think the city of Seaside is proposing just south of this location. Right? So a bus terminus here where people get picked up.
Is this coordinated with seawater intrusion?
I believe so. Yep.
These buckets.
So the undercrossing is an existing undercrossing under the freeway. It's just a one-way. So only a bus can only go in one direction underneath it, right? It's currently being used, I think, maybe by bicycles.
This is the tough spot right here.
So there you can see how the bus gets back onto the rail right of way. And then again, it goes down to La Playa and then it gets back into the mixed flow lane. So
Thank you. Appreciate it. Next question is the parking chapter. We keep having issues come up that will affect the traffic. Not to mention the VMT conversion, but when we did the seawater intrusion, I mean the seawater rise issue, we looked at different, I would say, scales of traffic coming into the city of Monterey, along Fremont, Del Monte to Pearl, etc. And what I saw is, in general, by the concepts, it appears that the parking spaces adjacent to the traffic lanes are going to disappear to allow additional traffic lanes.
Yep.
So where are we going to put these cars? I don't see that discussion here. In fact, I heard Fernanda say that we're not going to talk about two parking, maybe stackable parking lots. So how are we going to address that? I mean, it's problematic because almost every issue now coming to the Planning Commission, there's a traffic component, whether it be, and parking is one of that, usually part of that component. So I think it's a heck of a challenge to look at cars versus buses versus parking. And then we look at the existing transportation system. And I heard comment earlier about if we talk about collisions, and I keep hearing the major emphasis that we're going to bicycles. I've been hearing that now for about 10 years. I see maybe a few more, but I don't see the wave of bicycles that I see in other countries in the world, where it's a primary force of transportation for many people. Right now, the biggest nation on earth is having a problem where they're throwing away hundreds of thousands of bicycles a year in one city. So I understand that the state wants to get cars off the road, but when you start putting people into more vehicles into existing roadways and you put bicycles in that mix, you talk about collisions, and there's no comparison but car and a bicycle. And now we're seeing electric bicycles, so that have a higher speed. I just think that the whole issue that the state is forcing on the city is going to need an awful lot of inspection in order to keep it safe, keep it relevant as far as transportation from one point to another. And the only other question I had is on the airport, and I think maybe I'm getting the comments, but I don't have any other questions of Fernanda or Frederick right now. Any other commissioners have any questions?
Mike, why don't you open it up to public comment? We can do public comment, and then we can come back and we can have discussion.
Great idea. Let's, if you would, Sarah.
Sure thing, Chair. So I'll just do one more friendly reminder about how to participate and make a public comment. So you can join the Zoom meeting from a computer or phone and use the link or phone number posted on the agenda, which is posted at isearchmonterey.org under the recent tab. And to join the meeting, you can dial by telephone and dial 833-568-8864 or 669-254-5252. And our webinar ID is 161-990-8039. And just a reminder, if you'd like to make a public comment, simply raise your hand using the Zoom function, or if you'd like to raise your hand over the phone, please dial *9 to raise your hand and then *6 to unmute yourself. And just taking a look, I'm not seeing any public comment of this time, but I can let you know if anything changes.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, let's bring it back to the commission for some discussion.
First, I'd like to thank everybody who's put this thing together and running it through us, and that took a lot of time and effort, so thank you very much. Mike, I just want to comment quickly on bikes. I mean, I can tell you that when I'm on the bike trail, I see a significantly increased number of bikes, and I think I see a significant increase in number of bikes throughout the community in the last year. And I'm presuming that's relating to COVID. I mean, I see a lot more bikes out there. And then also, at least it's my opinion, and I have no idea if there's anything to back it up, but it's solely my opinion. I mean, I would have a hard time riding a bike around as transportation on our system of streets. It's just too dangerous. So is it a cart before the horse? You have to build the system, and then I think bikes will show up, because bikes won't show up if it's too dangerous to ride. And again, I mean, I see a lot of people with electric bikes out there, and I think electric bikes actually are a great, easy, inexpensive form of mass transportation that will eventually replace a lot of other transportation. But I think bikes are the wave of the future. It's way more economical. I like the electric bike, but I don't have one. Those are my only comments. Other than that, I really don't have anything. Other than I think it's staff's done a great job.
Thanks. Sandy?
I think that the plan is very good. These are all statements of good intent. When you get down to something that's very specific, like a street that has one too many lanes, so therefore congestion and accidents and all of that, then you get real specific. But these are all statements of good intent on what an ideal transportation would look like, and not specific examples of problem areas. That's my comment.
Thank you. Steve, how about you?
You don't want to hear from me.
Actually, I was waiting to hear from you.
I'm looking at the future, and I'm looking the law of unintended consequences, and I think it's a wonderful plan. It's pie in the sky. That doesn't mean we shouldn't try to implement it. I'm just thinking, my oh my, what a tremendous problem we have. And while all this was going on, I was thinking about the problem of electric vehicles and where is that energy coming from when we have brownouts in the state of California, rolling brownouts from PG&E on a regular basis, as well as the San Diego Authority. So, we have a lot of really, really important problems that we have to solve that I think must be solved before we can approach and try to implement the that's all. But I do think they're good suggestions.
Appreciate it. Mike, you have any comments?
You already heard my rant.
Okay. One of the things that came up in the discussions was that we have an airport that maybe plays to their own rules. I would like to suggest that it's called a regional airport, but I don't see the regional airport reaching out to their partners who live here, and that is causing problems in communications. And I would rather not have those kind of problems. And we have the same thing, I think, with the idea of any kind of rail or light rail. If we now started all over building the peninsula and what needed to go here, we could make this whole process would be a lot simpler, because I agree that there's an awful lot of good suggestions. I did read one item in that list that was submitted to us. It's item I as in Ida 15. I don't quite know if I understand that. Fernanda, could you kind of fill me in on what that means?
Okay, I'm getting there. Okay, so promote social justice and equity by prioritizing projects that increase mobility options to disadvantaged communities within the city and the region. So this is part of our environment, equity, and economy chapter. And we want to, so this is saying prioritize projects that increase mobility options to disadvantaged communities. So those projects could be things such as supporting MST and implementing a bus route that will connect, let's say, our Monterey workforce to Cannery Road jobs, and it doesn't have to be just within the city. It could be, you know, Seaside, Marina, carrying those people to where they need to go to work, or increasing, it doesn't even have to be new routes. It could be supporting MST in having more frequent service, or having service at the times that where people need to get to work, or maybe creating a new bicycle route or a safer bicycle route for people to get to school, who may not have a car, who may not own a car. So that's what we mean by prioritizing those projects. So because disadvantaged communities are those that may not own a car, may not work during normal work hours, so they may be excluded from some transportation options. So we want to help them by prioritizing projects that would create a more equitable transportation network.
Can I just take a moment here and explain a little bit more about this issue of environmental and social justice? The state of California has changed general plan law that we are now required to address these issues in our general plan update. And in fact, the city will be pursuing most likely an independent environmental justice element to comply with state law. And typically what that involves is the state has created some screening tools so we can look at areas perhaps in our city that have disadvantages in terms of travel or economics or various social factors. And what the general plan element will ultimately do is evaluate city investments and opportunities for these communities, how to greater connect them with the overall community. So in this case, when we are looking at mobility options, one of our goals is to look at those specific issues that are facing our disadvantaged areas within our own city of Monterey. And they may require, as Fernanda said, a different frequency to bus stops, or bus service. They may require maybe they're underserved by bike lanes. Perhaps, I mean, some of the social programs we currently provide to those neighborhoods is we provide with the school district year-round school lunches to certain neighborhoods, even during the summer. So if kids depend on those school lunches in order to for their nutrition, we and our parks department in the school district work together to provide those lunches year round. So I think as we work on our general plan and we'll be bringing forward an environmental justice element, you're going to start to see these concepts in more detail in strategies to address issues. And this is a requirement from the state of California as well under general plan law today.
Kim, I understood that, but today I was watching your presentation that you hosted regarding the hotel. at Casa Verde and Fremont, and some of these issues came up. The fact that we don't have a transportation system by bus to allow people that do late night shift work to travel that way, and the issues in our general plan that when it was suggested that we in the hotel they have a couple of apartments for employees. So those are some of the issues that I'm sure are going to come up. But I was under the impression that the whole idea here is to sound out this plan, and I have to compliment your staff and Frederick, because I think that they did a great job at it. But that I just wanted to generate as much conversation as we could, because I think this is a topic that's going to be beating down on us a lot more, and that's a state requirement. So, but thank you for that explanation. Any other comments? Then I would suggest that we have probably beaten this horse pretty badly. And for whatever value Kim can get out of it, I appreciate the efforts of your staff. Any other comments before we go to commissioners' comments? Oh, we also have, Kim, you have some updated material on what's going to be coming before us?
Sure do. So just a reminder, the City Council will be holding a special meeting on March 24th, and our city attorney will be presenting at that meeting about the Brown Act and conflicts of interest. And we try to periodically, every year or two, provide an opportunity for a new training, just to refresh all of our memories about what our requirements are. And if you have questions in advance of that meeting that you would specifically like our city attorney to address, please just shoot those over to myself or Sarah or Jennifer, and we'll try to make sure that Ms. Davi addresses those concerns. I did want to let you know we hosted a public meeting this week, an outreach meeting on a proposed new hotel application we've received for 2101 North Fremont. It's the site where Caruso's Corner was and a hotel that wrapped around it. So there's a replacement new hotel. This is a really exciting opportunity, I think, for the city to complement the revitalization of North Fremont Street. So we had some really good input at that meeting, and we'll be continuing to work with the developer on those issues. So when you see the project in a few months, hopefully we'll have more answers in advance of that meeting to some of the public's questions.
Could you say the address again?
2101 North Fremont Street. It's where I think it was Caruso's Corner. The restaurant's been closed for a bit, but
okay.
Casa Verde and Fremont.
Right.
Okay.
The city council, did I already talk about cannabis? They gave us direction to move forward on a cannabis ordinance. I believe it was a 4-1 vote. We plan to go back to the city council, hopefully to garner a little bit more information about what districts they might want to see these, or for the planning commission consider allowing or developing regulations for cannabis facilities. So are we talking about, in the public comment, we heard one for the Lighthouse area, one for downtown, and one for North Fremont Street. I think we're wanting just to touch base with the council a little bit more if they have any more advice for the planning commission before we start crafting regulations for your consideration. So cannabis will be on the forefront, the circulation element, the hotel, and then the training on March 24th.
Thank you. Any questions?
I would like to ask Kim. For the last 6 meetings, we have had, I think, pretty well-educated public speakers talk about the school district and the Monterey High School improvement. And the answer seems to be we can't do anything about it. They have an EIR, and the EIR says, yes, the lights are too much, the population will be too much, the neighborhood will be negatively impacted, but we can't do anything about it. Is it possible to get Christine Davi to come in and speak at one of our meetings about why the answer is we can't do anything about it.
Sure, and you're not the only commission that's
Good idea.
requested that. Oh, sorry.
Good. I thought I was a Lone Ranger.
So the Historic Preservation Commission, the Architecture Review Committee, and now the Planning Commission have asked for a report on what the city can take some actions. And so we can define, we've been doing a lot of research on what those actions are. So we'll be happy to share with you our research.
Wonderful.
And Kim, could we also extend that to not only the school district, but other districts, as well as the federal government, et cetera, et cetera? I mean, we all know we can't mess with the federal government and tell them what to do. It's their property. But how about local districts, water districts, school districts, et cetera, et cetera? So I'd like a comprehensive approach from the city attorney, please.
I can definitely request that. We may come back with sort of a segmented approach to that because there's different laws that apply to different special districts.
Okay.
So we've been doing quite a bit of research on school districts because of the issue that's come up. So we're probably a little bit more ready to present on that issue than, for example,
The airport.
federal districts and other things.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Kim, I'm still getting people yanking on my shirt about cell towers.
Yeah.
So that is on our attorney's plate and my plate. I think what we're talking about is finishing ADUs first because I've drafted that ordinance, and that'll be, I believe, the next one up for Ms. Davi's review. And then after that, she would be looking at wireless facilities. So at least in that's in my queue.
Thank you. Okay, commissioners, any final comments? The dreaded silence. Good. Then I would like to adjourn the meeting, and looking at the time, we did pretty well. Thank you very much. And I wish you all good night.